Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
February can be a particularly cold and brutal month in Portland, so it's easy to forget that our peak hiking and camping season is just around the corner and that now is the perfect time to start planning ahead by getting your permits and reservations in order, especially since a lot of our more popular nature areas are limiting visitor capacity. So today on CityCast Portland, our executive producer, John Atariani, is sitting down with Norther Emily of Wild Solitude Guiding to prepare us all for the upcoming outdoor summer season, from goal setting to permits to tips on how to snag some of the best campgrounds. It's Tuesday, February 11th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about.
We talked a lot about how it's important to stay active this winter, about how we're not going to fall into seasonal depression. And I think despite our best efforts, I'm sure a lot of people are like in sloth mode at this point in February. So I want to talk about practical stuff, like how should we start to get back into the outdoor exploring spirit after a long winter?
I think it's important to make sure that you're focused on things that bring you joy when you are thinking about movement and recenter, being outdoors in your life. It's very easy for people to get mixed up with the ideas of how they think they should spend their free time versus figuring out what actually brings them joy and then just doing that thing more.
But what if what brings me joy is sitting on my couch and eating popcorn and watching movies?
Yeah, so comfort and joy are not the same thing.
That's true.
You're
get it together, John.
Happiness and pleasure are not the same thing. They're both great, right? But not the same. I do think that comfort's really important. And I do think that a lot of people value comfort in a way that they maybe don't fully take ownership of. I sure do like to be cozy also. And I like to do hard things because it's really rewarding. And both of those are good. You can do both. You don't have to pick a team.
Okay. So we talked about this a little bit, and part of what you recommend, we're looking ahead to hiking season. We're going to be getting outside and exploring. And you've talked a bit about setting goals for the hiking season. And I think, again, that shift into doing the hard thing because it's going to feel really good can be overwhelming for so many people. So how should we set goals for this summer season without getting ourselves completely overwhelmed by it?
Your goal doesn't ever have to be athletic. And I think that's important for people to know. I had a friend whose goal was to sleep in his new camper top that he got put on his truck for 100 days in a year. Sleeping outside on as many nights as possible could be a really great goal. It has nothing to do with athleticism. I know a couple who set out to hike to 100 waterfalls in a year, and I think they ended up seeing 200 or 300 or something. And now they've seen almost every waterfall that a human can reasonably get to in the Pacific Northwest. And they're experts in this field. And it just started with a cute little goal that they had. Shout out to Tim and Melinda. So,
see, all your friends are outdoors overachievers, though. All the people that you know are the ones that are going to be I did 300 waterfalls.
I think you would be surprised at how average seeming most of these people are, though. That's something that I'm really obsessed with, too, is because everybody's just regular. We all just are regular people that did a thing and then did it again and then did it so many times that they got really good at it, or that they built a reputation for it. I do think this is a good time to point out, though, that a goal that can bring you into community with other people is a really excellent kind of a goal to have. And the example with my waterfall friends, it gave them the opportunity to connect with tons of other people who are interested in waterfalls, like photographers or canyoneers or other people that just like to do weird, hard hikes that are off trail. And they built a community for themselves around that. And I think that I hear so many people, especially in Portland where we have lots of transplants, so many people say that it's hard to make friends as an adult. But it's not if you have a thing that you're really passionate about that you can share with other people.
That makes a lot of sense.
You can still hike alone or do like most of the stuff that you do alone, but then like share about it on social media or like, develop adventure-based friendships, which I have several of, where it's like, that's the point of our relationship, is that we have mutual goals. And when our goals don't overlap, we don't hang out. And when they do, there you are. Thank you, friend. You're right here where I need you.
Yeah. Well, if we are trying to get our bodies ready to go hiking this winter, like, what do we do?
Yeah, so training for any type of pedestrian endurance activity, whether it's running or walking or hiking or whatever, just walking every day is a super accessible foundation to that. Mm-hmm. One of the kind of like little rules that people use to build out marathon training programs is the idea that your weekly miles add up to what you can do as a reasonable single day, like big effort for you, like a 7 out of 10 effort for you. So if you are walking 10 miles over the course of the week, I think that you can reasonably assume that 10 miles will be comfortable for you to do on your feet. Of course, there's, elevation gain and loss and things in there that could make that 10 miles of terrain either really low key and chill or extremely challenging and difficult. So there's other factors to take into account. But if you're hiking just like 10 miles on the weekend, and then you are putting in maybe 15 to 20 minutes of walking a day, like that's a really sustainable amount of effort that is accessible to most people.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to get into like where we should actually be going and like what sort of permits and stuff we need to get there. But first, let's take a quick break.
Lowe's knows that free is just better. That's why MyLowe's Rewards is free to join. As a member, you earn points towards MyLowe's money on eligible purchases, get exclusive free gifts, and earn free shipping at Silver Key status, all on top of weekly member-only deals. Don't wait. Join MyLowe's Rewards for free today and start saving more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
All right. Well, we're getting to like permit season, which I think a lot of people completely miss and then get into the time when they're ready to go hiking and are like, oh shit, I haven't thought about how to get where I'm going to go. But like a lot of these permits are coming online right now, right? And I've always found this so confusing, like having no idea how to figure out where to get permits or reservations or any of that stuff. So like, how does this work, Norther? Help us.
It is really, really complicated. So if it's confusing to you, that makes sense, because to their credit, land management agencies are listening to feedback and taking feedback from the public around permitting systems and how they work. And so they're constantly like tweaking things and trying new things. And so it's not as cut and dry as it used to be maybe 10 years ago when like the permits would go live at 6 a.m. on an obscure Tuesday in February. And then everybody would have their cart ready to go. And if you missed it, it was gone.
See, that's what I imagine it's like.
You have to get up at 4 a.m.
All the permits are live and everybody goes permit shopping. And if you missed it, you have to wait until next year to go into the woods.
Yeah. Lately, they've been introducing like a rolling permit system. Mm-hmm. So most national parks you're going to find, especially in Washington state where they have all the national parks in the Northwest, the national parks have a system set up where a certain percentage of the permits will become available earlier in the year. And then later into the season, they'll like release more permits. Permits could be something as simple as like a walk-up permit that you just sign on like the back of a little note card and attach to your backpack. But then there are advanced issue permits, and only some of those are lottery permits. So like the enchantments, so many people apply to go backpacking in the enchantments every year that is a lottery system. And that is, yeah, you're more likely to be struck by lightning probably than getting an enchantments permit. But you should try if it's within your ability to do a backpacking trip of that intensity. Like by all means, it doesn't hurt to throw your hand in and then scramble to invite some friends if you get your tag.
All right. So like, what are like 4 different permits that you think people should like keep an eye out for and we're going to have an awesome hiking season if we go after them and are lucky enough to get them?
Yeah, so close to home, we don't have a lot of permit systems set up yet.
That's like close to home, you mean like in the gorge or?
Yeah. We still don't have like a real permit system for any of the big gorge hikes. Probably the permit that I hear most people talking about right now is the permit to climb Mount St. Helens. St. Helens is like a non-technical climb. It's a lot of people's first non-technical summit. And those go on sale the first day of the month before the climb. So like March 1st, permits are available for the month of April. So if you miss April, be ready on the 1st, and then you can get the ones for May. They just have like a set quota for St. Helens climbs that they don't want to exceed. So they just make sure that we don't have more than, like 150 people climbing a mountain every day, which I think is reasonable. That's a lot of bodies in a small area.
Okay, so like March 1st is for the next month.
Yeah.
And how do you know when the right time to do a climb like that is? I did Mount St. Helens at one point. I definitely did not train enough. It definitely kicked my ass and it hurt and it was wonderful. But like, it goes from like, oh my gosh, there's so much snow, you're going to die, to like, oh my gosh, there's going to be an avalanche, you're going to die. Like, how do you pick a time when you want to actually climb a space like that?
I mean, summer climb is always available to you. I do think that the summer climb is more miserable because you're in all that like scree and that sandy like pumice stuff where you like take a step and then you slide halfway back down.
And on the winter hike, when I did it, you get to do the sledding route all the way down.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like one of the most amazing things I've ever done in Oregon. What is it? Glissading?
Glissading, yeah.
Yeah, where you climb the mountain and then there's like a toboggan run that everybody has carved down the mountain with their butts. And you get to like do this like 3-mile sledding route on the way down.
It's super fun. I do value my coccyx a lot and I do not want a tailbone injury, which I worry about with those types of things. And also the glissade route is always like scattered with people's stuff. Like, there's always like so many like phones and gloves and hats and like just like items that people forgot was in their pockets. So
don't listen to Norther. I know she's the expert here, but go and do it.
I think that the Mount St. Helens Institute does a really good job of like holding your hand and babysitting you through the entire process. If you open and read all of the emails that they send you, they will tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah. All right. So that's permit number 1. What's number 2?
Nearby, Mount Margaret has excellent backpacking opportunities. I would call that like a moderately challenging backpack. There's definitely some like elevation gain and loss in that area that you want to be prepared for. And you want to bring your sunscreen because there's not really a lot of trees in Mount Margaret. It's just like beautiful flower meadows and beautiful views of the mountain and everything. And that is, again, another rolling permit where you're buying your permit in March for April.
And that's also the first of the month?
Yeah. And then we also have the Central Cascades permit. That's like the big permitting system in Central Oregon. That went into effect in 2021. I think they were going to start it the year that COVID happened, and then they kind of like bounced it back a year or two. But that's another one that's really tricky. I was super confused by this one because instead of buying a permit to go to a specific location, you are buying either a day use permit or an overnight permit to park in the parking lot at the trailhead.
So if you have a parking lot that you've just been like, oh, I want to see that parking lot. So
I want to see that parking lot and I don't want to get in trouble. But I want to leave my car there all night. I can't wait. So for me, I wanted to go to Obsidian Falls, which is an area that was under a different permit system previous to this, like a larger area being enacted under permits. That was always a place where I was like, oh, there's a permit system. That sounds tricky. I don't really want to go. But with this new system, I was like, wow, I could pick like any number of trailheads to access that area. And then I can still go see the Obsidian Falls.
Got it.
So I had options and it wasn't hard to get. The permits for Central Cascades are just for June 15th through October 15th. Which is a pretty small window. But then when you think about what it's like in the Central Cascades, like the idea that you would visit any of these places outside of that permit window, the odds seem really narrow. So 40% of them are going to be available at 7 a.m. on April 1st. And then the remaining permits will go up for sale like 7 days before the date. So if you want to go on a Saturday in July, you're going to get up the Saturday before and get your permit.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so April 1st is sort of the first batch. And then if you miss that, you sort of have to be like ready to jump.
Yeah, that makes sense because we have so much problems with smoke down there that it would be really a bummer if you got up early in the morning in April and you picked out your backpacking trip with all your friends. And then the week of, you were like, actually, the AQI is 300 and now we can't go.
Yeah,
so.
I remember at one point I had a trip planned to Brightonbush. This was before there was the really bad fire, but several years before that. And there were wildfires around. And I was like, I'm just going to go anyways. So I went to Brightonbush and had this beautiful vista sitting in the hot springs in a cloud of smoke. And it was awful. I was so sad. I was just like,
oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Poor Brightonbush. They get hit really hard all the time.
All right. Finally, permit number 4. Where are we headed, Norther?
I would recommend the Olympic National Park.
Okay.
That has a lot of options that are not super physically demanding if you don't want it to be. My daughter and I have been backpacking together every year since she was 3. And that was one of the ones that we did before she was old enough to consistently carry her own stuff as we went to the Hoh River, which was really beautiful. Yeah. So you can get a permit for that. There's a bunch of different options in the Olympic National Park. But the permits for that open on the 15th of April.
Oh my gosh. We are totally going to make a list of all of this and throw it in our show notes because there's no way that anybody's going to be able to remember all of these dates and processes.
I mean, I would just put a link on it because at the end of the day, people had to click through and look at what the national park is saying.
Yeah. I've never been to the Olympics.
It's pretty cool.
Claudia's going to be mad at me when she comes back. I know that she loves that area.
Yeah.
I've never been up there.
It's pretty cool. If you're doing anything along the coast, though, the Hoh River is really chill. I have done a backpacking trip along the Olympic coast there, which is very rugged. And people used to say that to me. And I was like, oh, what does that mean? Exactly. The Oregon coast is rugged too. And then I went there and I was like, oh, this is rugged. That is one of the hardest backpacking trips I've ever been on. And it was not because the athletic requirements were steep. It was because it was miles of walking over slimy rocks where you had to pay attention to every single step. It was just super slow going. And then dragging yourself up and down over these giant capes. And my friend got stung by a bee. And there was sand fleas everywhere. And yeah, it was just every miserable situation that you could ever end up in.
Norther, I can't wait. You're making it sound so appealing.
We had to detour for 4 miles for water. But it was really beautiful. And I think that if I had gone into it knowing more about it, I would have had a better time. And I also would have chose different camps because I was just oh, I can walk 17 miles. You're not doing 17-mile days on the Olympic coast. I did it, but it was terrible and no one ever should.
And finally, you'd mentioned the enchantments earlier. I'm guessing to get that permit, you build a shrine, rob a bank. What else do you have to do?
You just say a prayer and you send in your request every year. One of the loopholes for getting an enchantments permit was to hike through the enchantments in a single day, which is an incredibly athletic adventure that many people have undertaken. And now they are looking at putting day use permits up on that too. So if you ever wanted to go to the enchantments and you were like, well, I'll just through hike it, this might be your last year.
Do you think they just screwed up with the name? Do you think they should have called it Mosquito Bay and it would be easier to...
I think branding does make a big difference. The enchantments sounds fantastic, doesn't it?
But you can't go, so you're never going to see it.
The enchantments are in the Alpine Lakes Wilderness, and the Alpine Lakes Wilderness is really big, and it has lots of lakes and lots of alpine, and you don't have to just go to the enchantments because you saw it on Instagram, but it is really spectacular.
Yeah. Well, along with all of these permits, I imagine that a lot of these places you'll be doing backcountry camping, but what if you were going to get campground reservations as well? Because I think that we've all had the experience of being I'm going to go camping out here. And then you look at the website and it just laughs at you just to be no, there are no campsites available for the rest of the summer. Sorry. How do you get a campground?
Yeah. So we have lovely state park campgrounds here in Oregon. Those are already open for reservation. I think they went live on the 1st, it looks like. Something that's new this year is that you can now make same day reservations online, which was not possible before. So that's really cool because sometimes there is a campsite there waiting for you. But what are you going to do? Like drive to every single state park campground and drive through the loop real slow looking for sites. So now you can do those reservations online, which is exciting. Some campgrounds do have a number of like first come, first serve sites. If you miss the reservation window for state parks, there are still a million other options for camping available to you. But that's the one where, you know, if you want like the perfectly flat paved parking strip and a place to plug in your RV or a place to like have a giant family reunion where you blocked out 6 sequential campsites together, like that's going to be your thing. So you got to get online now and make those reservations.
And how do you not end up next to that 6 RV deep, like raging family reunion?
Yeah, there's no guarantees, right? Like even way out. Sometimes I'll go camp out on like state forest land, which has no rules at all. Yeah. And you still end up next to one of those guys. So there's no guarantees, but definitely before you make a random state park reservation, really look at the map and see if you can figure out like which sites are the best and most secluded. I should say too, park rangers are extremely helpful and they know a lot about the areas that they're in and they know a lot about the park and they will give you so many great free tips. So always talk to the rangers and talk to the camp hosts and stuff. They will tell you all the secret stuff that you need to know. But other than that, yeah, I would stay away from parks like Honeyman State Park, which is super intense with the so-called family-friendly vibes.
Yeah, family party vibes. What about those like fire lookout towers that you see on Instagram? Yeah. But like you go on the website and they're like, no, they're booked until 2027. Like, how do you get one of those?
You know what? I've never stayed in one unless I was like friends with somebody that was doing like an active watchnewer. Is the only ones I've been to.
Well, okay, one, have a friend who's actually looking for fires. All right.
Yeah, that's my tip. No, I've never done one of those. I think they look really cool. There are some that are first come, first serve nearby. Like there's one on Devil's Peak in the Mount Hood National Forest.
I'm just imagining you have to like climb up and like peek in and see if someone's there.
Yeah. So I wondered about that for a long time too. There are really great like backup options nearby. Like if the lookout itself is taken. During the summer, there's actually like a single lane dirt road that comes pretty close to the lookout. So, you know, you can always like drive up there and see if anybody's up there or not before you hike all the way to the top, like 4,000 feet of elevation gain or something with your giant backpacking bag and then just be like, oh, darn. Oh, well.
Yeah. Well, another one that's just kind of like good luck.
Yeah, good luck. I mean, there's a cool lake nearby that you would not be sad to camp at by yourself, but it's not the same as like thinking that you're going to get a lookout tower, right?
Yeah.
My thing with that though is like the mouse shit that is in every little old cabin. Like some of them are really nicely maintained and stuff, but like I've never been in an old wooden structure that wasn't like full of mouse poop. I don't know.
You just got such a knack for finding the one thing that's like, but did you think about this? Did you think about that?
Did you think about the mouse poop? It's really serious. Yeah, even when my friend was manning a lookout tower in Northeast Oregon, like I went and hung out with him in the tower and stuff, but I slept in my car. I was like, no thanks. I don't want to hear like the little mice like making their little scratchy noises in the middle of the night. Hope one doesn't run over my sleeping bag. Gross.
Well, Norther, thank you so much for getting us all kind of inspired into thinking about how we're actually going to do it this summer. I'm sure that there's a lot of people that are like, oh, yeah, I do want to go out and do this stuff. So hopefully, you know, some people will get some good reservations. And if you're out there and listening and you do score the primo reservations, let us know. You get bragging rights.
Absolutely.
We'll give you a shout out on the show. If you get a pass to the enchantments, let us know. We will make sure that Norther knows about it because she'll be jealous.
I'll be jealous. It'll be great.
Well, that's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.